Hello, and welcome to the Captain's Table. I'm your host, Dawn Deckman-Moeller, and today we have Tom Draper, who is a top acting coach in Los Angeles for the last 15 years. The Burbank Times called Tom one of Hollywood's top acting coaches. He gets calls from studios and producers, agents, managers, and the actors themselves in order to help them find the best performances possible. Welcome to the show, Tom.
Thanks, Don. I appreciate it.
Today, we're going to learn a lot about how you got started in the business and how it morphed into being a coach for some world-renowned actors. We're going to take a real quick break and come on back, okay? Hold on. Welcome back, Tom. The Captain's Table is excited to hear about some of the things that you have been doing for many, many years in this industry. I'd like to start out with a little bit about how this all began. I know that you grew up in the San Fernando Valley, but if you'd like to share with us a little bit about your history and your story.
Yeah, well, Don, I didn't wake up and go, I want to be an acting coach. I don't know if a lot of people do that. I kind of fell into it in a beautiful way. But to go back, I look at my life real quickly in like three different phases. Okay, and I've always been about maybe from my background and my education, looking at your job as a vocation, as a way of life, as it not just bringing in money and providing, which is an amazing thing to do, but also it being a calling. Okay.
Oh.
And I think that's that Catholic education. And initially, it was quite simply the very young dream of being a basketball star.
Oh, I want to hear about
And
that.
yeah, well, it's a very short career. It ended when I was 13, when I realized I could not really compete with the big boys, so to speak. I was good for my little tiny area of North Hollywood, California. But then when it expanded out to a traveling team, and I realized, wow, this is big time. 13 guys slam dunking, and I could barely touch the rim. So we kind of left that. And then I found myself thinking I had a calling to the priesthood, to the Roman Catholic priesthood.
My
And
goodness.
yes, it was quite an amazing experience, quite honestly. But then I discerned after 5 years, thinking it really wasn't for me.
Is that 5 years in a seminary?
Yes, I went to a high school seminary, which there are very few that exist now.
Uh-huh.
I went there for 3 years
Oh, my
and then
goodness.
2 years at the college, studying to be a diocesan priest for Los Angeles.
My goodness.
Yes.
I've never spoken to anyone in my life that wanted to be a priest. My father did at one point in time when he was young. But
Hmm.
well,
Well, you'd
goodness.
be very surprised. There are some people that you'd be surprised
Mm-hmm.
that were discerning that. And I think a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people in their lives, Dawn, have gone through various phases in their life. This is what I think I should do, and then they come to realize it's something else, and it's quite an interesting journey.
Was that a hard moment when you discerned that this may not be for me?
Yeah, they really make a demarcation between sophomore and junior year of
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, it's kind of these levels. The high school, there's a certain amount of immaturity in high school, and then you get into college. It's a next step, and then they made this demarcation between sophomore and junior year. Like, okay, you're taking another serious step. And then obviously from the college to the theologate, which is the grad program, that's another major step. All these steps because you're making this very huge commitment.
Mm-hmm.
And I just discerned it really wasn't for me. I thought maybe I would go into an order like the Jesuits or
Yes.
something like that. And I ended up wanting to continue philosophy just because I enjoyed it. And I had no idea what I wanted to do, Don. I had no idea. This acting thing had not come across my plate. I grew up in Los Angeles. I grew up around the business, so to speak, even
Mm-hmm.
though no one in my family was in the business, but going to school with kids who were on shows or their parents were actors or cameramen or grips. So I was very aware of it.
Very common
Loved
growing up in the
movies.
valley, wasn't it? We grew up and had no clue what our parents did or what our friends' parents did, and in the end, years later, you find out they've got Oscars and Emmys.
Yeah, yeah. And bizarre, like, where is this girl in class? Oh, she's on set on Little House on the Prairie.
Right,
Oh, that's where she is.
right.
So it was really cool. It was really fun. I enjoyed it. And listen, I love movies.
Me too.
So that has always been with me. So when I left, I decided to just keep studying philosophy because I enjoyed it.
Yes.
Didn't know what I wanted to do, like I said.
Where were you studying
And
at? Were you in a JC or
so
university?
I left what's St. John's College Seminary in Los Angeles, and I went to Gonzaga University in Spokane, Washington.
Oh, okay. How
Go
did?
Zags, go Bulldogs! We're an amazing basketball team
There
now.
you go.
Not back then; they were good, but they weren't quite as good as they are now. And so I had to take a fine arts class. So it was either underwater basket weaving or some sort of art or this acting. I was like, wow.
Acting.
I was very shy. I grew up a stutterer. I stuttered.
Oh, it's like the
So I
King's
had this.
Speech film. And he had a
Isn't that
coach, right?
amazing?
He had a coach.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
And so it was really a mental thing. Physically, it was really manifesting from really nerves and fear. And so I've always been kind of the person, fortunately, to kind of go after the things that make me scared because I know it's gonna break me open and make me a better person. So the idea of taking the acting class was to break out of my shell, to meet girls, to really push my
Wait
boundaries.
a minute. That took a second there. To meet girls.
Of course. I
Because you're
mean,
out of
it's
the
the
seminary,
classic
right?
actor story. It's the classic actor story. A guy in college is like, oh, I'm going to meet girls. I'm going to go and be one of the only guys in acting class. A little bit of that. And I loved it. I loved it from the first day I took a class. And I was like, wow, could I do this? Do I
Wow.
want to do this?
Yeah.
And through a series of events, I auditioned for a couple grad schools. So basically, I continued studying philosophy, but I took every acting class I could at this small university. And I got into all the shows. I
Oh,
mean, really, because
oh
no one
goodness.
else was really wanted to do it. I got very lucky that I went to a small school, and I'm sure now it's a lot more competitive, the acting
Was it
program. But
musicals or
no, I would
plays?
not do a
You-
musical. I cannot sing. Don't ask me, Dawn. I will
okay.
belt one out. No, I'm just kidding.
Do you have was
Um,
there a favorite play that comes to mind that you did in one of your
well,
roles?
probably Eugene O'Neill's All Wilderness.
Okay.
Played young Richard, which is a
Mm-hmm.
classic play.
Mm-hmm.
And getting introduced to Eugene O'Neill is an amazing playwright.
Wow.
So I believe that was my last semester or something. So it had a big influence on me. I started learning about theater. I started learning about the history of acting, which I had no idea about. And I auditioned for some grad schools, and the ones I really wanted to get into, I didn't get into, and ones that I was like, yeah, I got into.
Mm-hmm.
And I immediately had that classic thing, which is if they want me a part of the club, then I don't want to be in it. I thought that if this grad school wants me to go to their school, there must be something wrong because I really felt I did not have any talent or really know what I was doing.
What was the monologue you were? Do you remember the monologue? I mean, I had one I used to use from A Midsummer Night's Dream years ago. for
Uh,
numerous auditions.
yeah,
Puck.
yes. Oh, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Two gentlemen from Verona.
Okay.
And what
What was
was the
Shakespeare?
modern one?
I
Wow.
never had a modern one.
Oh, I believe it was, I'm forgetting the name of the play, but it was a very modern contemporary play.
But you probably remember
Um,
some of the lines.
um,
Maybe.
gee.
That's okay. I won't put you on the
Oh,
spot.
My Mother's Turtleneck. It was he did this monologue talking about his mother's turtleneck, and
That's
it was really
classic.
tragic because the kind of twist in the monologue is that his mother committed suicide.
Oh, sad by the turtleneck.
Yeah, so it was one of those hopefully poets here and get a laugh
There you
type
go.
monologues.
Oh my goodness. So what happened then?
So what happened then was I'm from Los Angeles. I was like, wait a second. Some of the it's either New York or LA. I
Sure.
had no one in New York. My mom was in LA still. She had an extra room. She said I could uh, use the extra room
As
when I got back out of
boomerang.
college. Very nice of her.
Yeah.
And I was like, let's study with the greatest teachers in the world in Los Angeles.
There you go.
And
What year was
what
that? I'm curious.
so I
About.
graduated in '89.
Okay.
In '89, I
Okay.
graduated
I'm
from
with you.
Gonzaga.
All right. All right.
And you were kicking around that time, correct?
Well, I graduated in 76, so I was the
Got you.
Charles Conrad Studios on Magnolia. Jeremiah Comey, some of his
I know
proteges.
those
Mm-hmm.
very well.
Yeah, that's where we went
Very
right out of
well.
high school. It was our college.
Yes, that's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, acting is to me kind of like kung fu, meaning that they're passed on from the masters. When you look at kung fu or martial arts people, they have this lineage. They sometimes they have the pictures of their masters on the wall. He learned it from this guy. This guy learned it from this guy, and it's this passing on of this craft. And that's how acting is done. Now, back in the day, you used to learn it by being in a theater company, and they give you a small part, and you watch the actor, and you kind of absorb it.
Yeah.
But then Stanislavski changed the game when he started trying to figure it out, to figure out this unconscious process,
Right.
which we do in life naturally,
Right.
but that we have to repeat. We have to know. I mean, and as an actor, you know what's going to happen. You know the next line. So you have to learn a technique that you forget, in a sense, that you're in a scene, but you have to fulfill all the circumstances of the scene.
I remember a phrase, I think it was concentration away from yourself is the creative source of acting. It was just, that's what stuck with me from the training I had.
That's amazing because one of the first actors I sat down with, a priest friend of mine introduced me to an actor. It was like my first actor that I got to meet, and we sat down and we had lunch, and he was so kind to tell me a lot of things about acting.
Yeah.
And one of the things he said was the answers are all on the other person in the scene, which is
Yes.
another way of saying what you said, not quite as eloquently. But and that stuck with me for years, and that came into play when I got to study with Sanford Meisner.
Yes. Yes.
Sanford
Repetition.
Meisner, yes, the repetition.
Yeah, I like your yellow shirt.
Conrad, yeah,
I like your yellow
I
shirt.
can't see you, but
I like your yellow shirt.
I'm wearing black, by the way.
I am too.
Good observation, Dawn. So like I was saying, so when I got to LA, it was like, sounds terrible, but I was like, who's still alive?
Well, yeah.
Meaning from the source. And the source to me is Stanislavski.
Yep.
And then it's the group theater, Sanford Meisner, Bobby Lou, Stella Adler. The list goes on. I'm missing out on some. But the greats, you look at all the great American actors, they usually come from this tree of people.
Yes.
And since I'm an old dog, some of these people were still alive. And so that's why I searched out and studied with Sandy.
Gosh, where was that? Was that in LA? How did I miss out on actually, like Diane Keaton, she'll say, I study with Sandy. And I'm like, I wish I would have known Sandy. or
Well,
I just
his
didn't.
glory years, Sandy's glory years were in New York at the neighborhood playhouse.
Yes, yes.
That's when the majority of people studied with him.
Mm-hmm.
Now, later in his career, he's moved to Los
Oh
Angeles,
my gosh.
maybe for the weather or whatever. And every summer, he would do this intensive, a 4 week intensive, and you would do it on the island of Beckwith.
Where?
Yeah, Beckwith,
The
which is somewhere in the Caribbean. I have no
Oh,
idea what this. I know. It was crazy.
oh my
It was
gosh.
if you got the opportunity to study in Beckwith, and it was all day long. It was 9 to 5, and then at night you would rehearse and work on it. Well,
Oh,
the
I'm
year that I was interested and found out about it, he was too ill to travel. He was too frail to travel to Beckwith, so he did it in Los Angeles.
okay.
And I fortunately got in, maxed out every credit card I had to pay for it because it was quite expensive.
That's
Uh,
amazing.
and I couldn't work at the time. I had to dedicate it completely to this. And that was, one of my experiences with these teachers. And I just went down and just found really, Don, you know how I find a class?
How?
I would, obviously it would be someone who had some stature and who was recommended and in line with all these greats. And I go into class, and if I got nervous or scared, like, oh man, these people are good, or I can't do that, I was
Yeah.
like, well, I have to do it now.
Because this is
I
it.
can't
Yeah.
because because like I was saying before about my choice to go into the fine arts class, it was because it made me nervous. And I knew that pushing myself and pushing my boundaries was just going to make me a better person, a better actor. And so a lot of these classes I took, you'd audit them, and then I would get this feeling like, oh, this scares me. I have to do it. And so that was my life. It was all study because I couldn't or didn't get into the great schools, and those were 3 years usually,
Yeah.
9 to 5 for 3 years, like training, training, training. So I did my own training.
Yes.
I studied with all the greats. I said, okay, there are great dance teachers in LA. I studied with dance
Joe
teachers.
Tremaine.
Joe Tremaine
Morelandis. There was
Studios.
another one.
Exactly.
LA. I can't remember the
And
one in LA, but
the Valley is absolutely amazing
Debbie
for dance
Reynolds,
studios.
which
The
was
Debbie Reynolds
my
Dance
my
Studio.
parents grew up with the Reynolds family. Bill Reynolds, or Debbie's brother. But yeah, my dad knew Bill and Debbie. But I
Yeah,
had auditions at her studio in North Hollywood. We're going to break
amazing.
for just a second for our sponsors and come right back. Welcome back to the Captain's Table. We have Tom Draper with us, and we are learning more about how he got into this exciting business of show business and acting and coaching. So let's continue where we were at there.
Yeah, so let's cut to the chase.
Okay.
I I go to New York at one point. I'd done a play there at Second City, which is in the Lower East Side. It was an amazing experience with an amazing actor and writer, Raymond J. Barry, and really loved the city. It is an amazing energy, an amazing town. And I had an opportunity to move there, and I did. And so, what's the first thing you do? One of the first things, you start looking for classes to keep your craft going.
Yep.
And I started studying with this guy named Tom Noonan. Tom Noonan is a great character actor. He's been in movies like Heat, and just tons and tons of stuff that I'm not thinking of right now if you look him up.
Okay.
And here I am in this class, and I meet an actor, and we become buddies. And as a buddy, you help each other out.
Sure.
This is what actors do. They have an audition. They go, hey, man, can you read the lines with me?
That's
Or
what
whatever
Joey
it
used to
is.
do on Friends, right? Pull someone in, help him with
There
his
you go.
lines.
Exactly. And me being, having some training as a director, as a theater director, because I had a theater company in Los Angeles for a few years. So I got used to not only acting, but also helping actors get a
What was
performance.
the name of that theater? I just want to take a note.
We were called the Vertical River, and we
Yes.
were at the Off-Ramp Theater, which no longer exists, which is on Cahuenga.
Okay. Okay.
And Cahuenga and,
Like the Vine
um,
area.
yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Right
Okay.
in that area.
Gotcha.
And it was a really cool, it was a double, there were two theaters next to each other.
Okay. Gotcha.
And we did all our shows there. And so this actor in New York asked me specifically with help in this audition for this film. And I coached him on it, and he got a call back. I was like, oh,
Oh,
cool.
yeah.
And then I coached him for the callback, and it, we heard about this actor, this Irish actor who was kind of getting a lot of heat. This guy named Colin Farrell was
My
starring in
mother
the
had a
movie.
crush on him.
Well, who doesn't? Colin is one handsome
Oh my
man.
gosh, go on.
And my actor, who's a very good friend,
Uh-huh.
Shea Wiggum,
Oh, I know who he
uh,
is.
he, well, this was his big break. He had really had done, I mean, he had done some stuff, but this was his kind of next step here. And this was a huge opportunity. And the callback, Joel Schumacher was in town.
Oh my
And so he
gosh.
did the callbacks in his suite with Colin because they
Oh,
wanted to pair up actors coming in.
sure.
And Shea was playing.
Chemistry, right?
Exactly. It was a chem read. They wanted to see if they had that fire between them because Shea was playing essentially the nemesis
Yes.
in this project. And I remember I was working on a student film at the time, and I believe the audition was in Midtown, and I was working in the West Village, and he literally came by the set, and I talked to him. I go, man, just go for it. Just it was basically like a fight scene. I
Yeah.
was like, you have nothing to lose
Right.
except just putting your heart and soul into it and going for it. And he did. And they ended up grappling with
Yes.
each other in the suite and grappling and falling and breaking a coffee table.
Oh no.
And
Perfect.
Schumacher just loving it, going, you got the part.
Oh
You
my.
got the part right then and there.
That is such a successful audition with your help.
Yes, I would say so.
I would say so too.
Um, and then he asked me, hey, could you help coach me on this thing? I'm going down to Florida. I'd really like to kind of be prepared. Honestly, it was a little thin on the page. Great script, but his character, the nemesis, was a little thin and a little villainy.
Okay.
So we tried to go through the whole script, scene by scene, prepping it, not pre-planning, but creating a backstory and all this. Essentially, goes down to Florida. Joe Schumacher, being the amazing director that he was,
Oh my
sees
gosh.
what's going on, allows for improvisation, allows for the script to grow. His part grows. And from there, essentially Shea's career is launched from that. And subsequently, he asked me to coach him on everything that he does. Every audition he goes out for, hey, can you help me out? Me being a buddy? Sure. Why not? I'll help you out.
Oh
Breaking
yeah.
down scripts, finding the character, all that fun stuff. And eventually, he starts working on a regular basis, and people on set are like, hey, man, what's your story? Do you have a coach? Do you work with someone? He's like, yeah, I work with this guy. And you go, can I have that guy's number?
I've got a
And he goes,
guy.
yeah, sure. And so people started calling me,
Yeah.
and I started helping them out. And at a certain point, I have to start, charging a little bit of money because it does take a lot of time to do it,
Yes.
to help people out. And then, so how do you transition from um, helping people out to then teaching a class? And what happens in that was a lot of people would come to me, and I get actors who would say, man, I really like working with you. I'm not, I don't have that many auditions, or it's, I really can't afford to come in for every audition. Do you teach a class? Because I'd love to do that. And
Sure.
then when I had a certain amount of people who were interested, I just rented a theater and started teaching a class.
That's how that works, right? But please, but
Exactly.
actors need to be working. It's you have to work on your chops
All the
all
time.
the time.
Acting is I call it a contact sport. Uh,
Yeah.
and you only learn by being on your feet. You can't talk about acting.
No.
There's a certain amount of analysis of scenes that you can do, but you got to get it up on your feet. The lessons that you learn are on your feet. Do you
Absolutely.
have to be in a class, Dawn? It certainly helps, but you don't have to be. I've had actors who've come to me who have honestly never taken a class, but just work with me on every audition, and that's how they learn. They're
Right.
like learning by doing, and then they
Yes.
book something,
Yes.
and then they learn by being on set.
That's right. And looking at the other actors, and I mean that's how you learn. You learn just by doing it.
Exactly.
You know, it's a numbers game too. You got to do a lot of auditions sometimes before you start booking one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
yeah. Big time.
So, so tell me about then the moving into your what was your first class like? Where did you have it? Was it in North Hollywood? Was it in Burbank? Did you rent a theater?
Yeah, I rented a
You said about
theater.
15 years ago or so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's about 15 years ago. I just looked around and I found, I don't know if it exists anymore, but the Studio City Theater
Okay.
on Ventura,
Enter.
beautiful black box with the classic, raked up seats. The teacher was a Uta Hagen
Oh.
bass teacher.
Oh my
So
gosh.
there was the classic black box with a lot of props to do
Yeah.
scenes. I had studied at the HB Studios in New York um, back in the day, and so it was just what I focused in on, Don, was film and television scenes. I was trained, well, all my teachers doing
Right.
plays. We
Sure.
do plays, and it's an amazing way to learn.
Yes, it is.
But all the actors that were coming in to me were all auditioning for TV and film.
That's
So
right.
I felt like it would be a bit of a disservice to go and do Glass Menagerie when they have audition for Law and Order.
I,
And
oh God,
so
that's
we would
funny.
work on film and television scenes. And honestly, Don, a lot of the film and television writers were former playwrights.
You know, I remember back at the Charles Conrad Studios, one of the things we were required to do, and I've taken some classes here too with Jonathan Lipnicki, but to bring in material. Because an acting coach, I mean, you're constantly sourcing good material to do these reads together. And it really helps the actors to learn how to find some good scripts, right?
Yes, and listen, what I've discovered throughout the years, because this has been a learning process for me, I continue to study. I mean, I'll with a great acting teacher, I still have a little skin in the game when it comes to acting. I don't really have a lot of time to audition because I'm all day coaching, but
Right.
I've had the great opportunity of some of my actors asking me to be in their projects or auditioning for stuff and getting in. So I'm constantly learning.
Right.
And what I've learned throughout the years is that TV, TV scripts and movie scenes, they have, I don't want to say a specific formula, but there are a certain amount of beats, there are transitions, there are certain things that I've discovered that are kind of the same that you can use as a tool to understand and break down scenes and do amazing, unique auditions while also fulfilling the requirements of the scene.
Well,
Does
and
that
you're
make sense?
yeah, it does, and you're starting to move into an area that I want to talk about too, just some of the techniques, because I know that new actors, when a coach talks about the beats of the scene, or if you're auditioning for a comedy where you have three cameras. Now, I worked years ago on. I mean, I've never worked on a camera set
Hmm.
today because it wasn't like that in the 80s when I was doing TV shows. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
there's so much more to know about uh, the beats of a script and what type of performance you need to give based on the style of the show.
Oh, genre is
Yeah.
so important to understand. A lot of people are like, um, is this real? Am I being real? They're very concerned about being real. I'm
Authentic.
concerned about finding truth. Because, I mean, is it real, Dawn, in a three camera sitcom, that level of energy? Is it real? No,
Was
it's
the
not
office
real.
was
People
the
don't.
office shot on a 3 camera?
Okay, The Office had a very subtle, that was not considered a three camera live audience
Okay.
classic sitcom.
What would
You
be?
know, well, uh, uh,
Because I don't know.
Lucy was like one of the first to
Oh.
do it live with
Oh.
three cameras. I mean, she was a genius.
Okay.
Um, Friends that we were talking about
Friends.
is a
Okay.
classic. This is when you go to Warner Brothers, they have an audience, they sit,
I took the
they
tour
have
last
about,
year.
there you go. So you saw
I
the
got to go
set,
on.
you
Yeah.
saw how they have a swing set. They usually have three sets. They
Right.
have the main, then there's the coffee shop in that
Yes.
one, and then one other one. So, and it's written in a very specific style. You can look at the script and understand it's for a sitcom by the way it's spaced.
Okay.
It's a double space between
Oh,
the lines.
I didn't know that.
Uh, all the descriptions are all in caps. So you know
Okay.
immediately it's a three camera sitcom. It
Oh.
has a certain energy to it depending on the sitcom, as opposed to The Office, which you would see is had got the regular descriptions. It's not all caps and there's not spaces between them. And that energy is a very low key documentary style of
Right.
acting.
You're
You
right.
see?
Yes, I do.
So you're both finding the truth in it, and you have to, as an actor, discover that, but you have to understand the genre. You would play a scene very differently if you're doing NCIS or even like a big comedy on Apple, like Acapulco, which has a real big 80s fun energy
Right.
as opposed to a real small. How about A24 film?
Right.
Very indie, very small, very internal. So you have to really understand the genre.
Do you get into some of those type of genre techniques? Is it do you offer classes that are those type of techniques, or is it something that you just
Well,
you learn while
no,
you're
you
in your
use it all the
classes?
time.
Okay.
It's all the time. So, for example, in class, uh, let's think of the scenes I did last night. One was from a TV series, and it was like an action comedy.
Yeah.
So the energy of the character was a very comedic guy. And then, so that has a certain energy. And so we're looking at the genre. You literally see who wrote it, who's producing it, who's directing it. This gives you all clues on how the style is going to be.
Oh.
As opposed to another scene we did was for a show called Sweet and Bitter on Stars. So that's going to have a different energy. It was based off of a book,
Right.
very internal about a girl's journey in New York. So right in class there, we're learning about genres without it being specifically a genre class because we're always dealing with genres.
Well,
We're always learning how to deal with that.
I love that, and that's an area that I want to learn more about just for myself and my own career. But we're going to take a real quick break and come right back. Hello, and welcome back to the Captain's Table. We are talking about how techniques can be used in different genres in the acting business, especially when you are going out for auditions, and to learn a little bit more about how to approach an audition when it comes to a comedy or a drama or like a 3 camera type of a television show. So, Tom, I'm learning so much myself. I'd like to learn a little bit more about um, your techniques. And I know that since the pandemic, actors have had to do what we call self tapes. And I think that's an entire business on its own. Um, I know that when I have to do a self tape and upload that audition to a casting director's website to review, my husband is the cameraman.
Mm.
And sometimes he's doing the reading with me. And, you know,
And
we
you're still married.
And we're still married. And sometimes, and a couple
Wow.
times, I think in the beginning, a couple years ago, he's like, "You need to learn your lines." Yeah,
Oh,
and
ouch.
oh, I know. So, yeah, I did one a couple of weeks ago for a. I apologize. It was last month for the sequel Twisters. It was somebody that
Ah,
was going to be in a tornado, and it was two lines, but it had to be spot on. I did end up getting 4 days on that job, but not in that
amazing.
role. Not
Congrats.
not in that role. And I wish I would have known why. But with a self tape, you don't get the feedback. So, how do you talk about and learn about that, or teach your students on if they come in and pay to have a self tape done, or just give me some advice on that. I had one person said, please don't look straight at the camera, and I was doing that. Make sure you're a little
Dawn.
bit, yeah, just make sure you're a little bit off. I think I need to go buy a gray background, get a light. Just let's talk a little bit about some advice on techniques and advice for self tapes to have a successful audition, and how
Sure.
you help your students and your and other actors, how you help them with those auditions. Because back in the beginning, New York, this was a live audition that the table was broken. They had a little bit of a brawl, and but things are different now, Tom.
Yes. Yes. Things are definitely different. Let's speak to technique
Okay.
first. Okay. You asked me what my technique is. There is no Tom Draper technique. It's just all the people I've studied with and all the stuff I've learned and all the feedback I get from actors. Um, that what I am doing is I'm helping an actor find their technique. One of the
Okay.
great pieces of advice I got from Jeff Corey, one of my first teachers, he said, you have to learn the Tom Draper technique. So you have
Interesting.
to learn what works for you. Some actors solely like to work with their imagination. Some actors like to work a lot of personal stuff. I am not a this technique is it. It is not about the technique. We don't care about craft because all that matters is between action and cut. Think about
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
That's all we see are the snippets when they say action and cut. Who cares how you got there? If you
Right.
have to hang upside down by your toes in the closet to get there, that's absolutely fine. That's an exact quote from one of my teachers, Ray Martin. Stole it. God bless him.
I love that. How many push-ups do you do before you go to action?
Exactly. It
Okay.
doesn't matter.
Right.
Just that you're fulfilling the material.
I'm with you.
So what I do is I feel like
I'm
I'm
taking
just
notes.
passing on what I have learned. And there are certain things that I'm like, this is the way I think it is. Um, however, to get there, we're talking in many, many different ways. So that's why I have actually different classes. I've been teaching a 7 week um, uh, intro to the Chekhov technique. Not Anton Chekhov, the great playwright, but actually his nephew.
Oh,
Um, yes, Michael Chekhov was considered Stanislavski's greatest actor.
did not
The
know
man
that.
himself, yes. When he
Okay.
came to Hollywood in the 40s,
Okay.
he was nominated for an Academy Award for Suspicion.
Okay.
Brilliant actor. And when the Hollywood community found out there was a Russian in town who was close to Stanislavski, they wanted to work with him. Well, Chekhov kind of came up with his own thing. Stanislavski let him do his thing with the Moscow Art Theater because he was like, this guy is a genius.
No
And
kidding.
he kind of developed his own technique, which is all imagination based.
Okay.
And I had the amazing opportunity in the early 90s to study with George Stanov. George Stanov was Michael Chekhov's directing partner. Michael Chekhov dedicated his book to the actor, to George Stanov.
That's
So this
amazing.
man has, like we were talking about Kung Fu, the line of people.
Mm-hmm.
We have Stanislavski, Chekhov, Stanov. I got to work with Stanov. It was amazing. It was a
Sure.
very unique technique.
And that
Um,
was a technique of imagination?
It is basically imagination
Okay.
based. I call the workshop out of your head into your body.
I want to take
We
that
make of
class.
this imagination. It really is amazing. I'm not tooting my horn. I'm tooting the horn of Michael Chekhov and the amazing pedagogy of George Stanov, who imparted this amazing technique in such a beautiful way that I worked with him loved him. And recently, well, 5, 6 years ago, I became friends with George's. She wouldn't call an assistant.
Mm-hmm.
She studied with George for many years, an amazing actress, Nina Lincoln.
Okay.
And she so kindly, me and another actor, went to her house for 4 years on every Sunday to study the Chekhov technique
Oh my gosh.
via George Stanoff. Like, what an amazing,
Wow,
beautiful
that's just
person to
amazing.
do that.
Oh, it
And
absolutely is.
she has tapes of George talking about the technique, which I've transcribed. She has years of notes, which she has given to me. And so I've learned it as an actor.
Uh-huh.
And then she has helped me then teach it. And I've done 4 workshops so far. And all the actors seem to really like it. And the beautiful part is that now we're getting to see it in film and television work. These actors are now using it, and I'm getting feedback on how it works and the efficacy of it.
Tell me the
And
name
so
again of
it's
that workshop. I want to make sure we got the
uh
name of that particular workshop.
well
Out of my
oh well, I call it out of your head into your body, but
Okay.
it's the Michael Chekhov technique,
Okay. Okay.
very simply. And so we have that. And then I also have on the other side a very Strasbourg personal approach via the acting teacher, Eric Morris. Eric Morris famously wrote the book, No Acting, Please. I mean, that is the greatest title of a book ever.
I have to
No
get that.
Acting, Please. As a young actor, I saw that in the library and I was like, I have to read that.
I have to read that
Blew
now
my
too.
mind. Yes. Um, and so I study with him. And
Okay.
that is all personal work. Chekhov would say, do not use your personal life. I'm doing a Russian accent there. Um, and Eric would be, no, expose yourself, use your personal life, rip out your heart.
And
And is one better than the other? It depends on the actor. I
it,
honestly, there are actors who use both.
it depends on the moment too. I think I did a scene recently where my late mother, Janet Deckman, and she was in the business. Um, oh, she came right through me. I'm not kidding you.
Uh,
I did a couple physical moves, and when I almost had a blackout, and in
oh,
hindsight, I
wow.
was like, that was my mother. I was doing mom.
Mm,
A little bit came out. It just happened.
wow.
Yeah, it was great.
That's amazing.
So
Um,
go ahead.
no, go ahead. I'm lost where I was
No, I
at.
was going to say uh, the workshops. What would be kind of the takeaway for an actor with that type of workshop? I'm just when they're talking about it, there's buzz about it. What would be maybe the highlight as an actor that I could use in my work or in my auditions from that particular workshop?
For that particular workshop, that you could use for your audition. I mean, if you would learn simply about the 3 energies,
Okay.
and that's not an esoteric like energies. This is what Chekhov called them, and they are lightness and ease, fire, and radiation. Now, if you, I can't really get into the like talking about it will like take forever,
Sure.
and there are physical exercises that you have to do. But essentially, every actor, no matter what part they're playing, even if it's a quote unquote heavy character, has to have lightness and ease. There has to be a lightness and ease, even if it is a quote unquote heavy scene. An actor has to have fire, that is basically their charisma.
Mm-hmm.
That even if it's a nebbishy character who's very small, you still have to have fire, and you have to have radiation, which is the performance goes out. It goes out to the camera. It's not so internal. It's small. So those are kind of just 3 tools that it's great for an actor to have. But when it comes to answer your question about the self-tape game, which is
Yes.
what this is all about now, right? There's
Right.
very few in person. There have been in person chemistry reads. Those
Mm-hmm.
are those are not out of the question. They are doing that. I think they're getting smart now.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're realizing that sure, we can do a first round and gather up the good ones, and when it comes close, I think they need to see him in the room
Yes.
and quite possibly give him some direction to see
Yes.
if they can take a little direction, because they might get on set and be completely set with that.
Right. Right. Right.
But they are still casting straight from tape.
I know, but I think we'll see what happens. There's some things going on right now, and I think there'll be a light at the end of the tunnel. And I think general
Listen,
casting
Don,
directors, they kind of probably miss doing what they used to do, is cast, right, with people in the room where they tape them, where they read them, where they see them, and they can go to their producers or ad agencies and give some recommendations. And I think it'll come back around again.
you,
I hope.
I don't think it is, Don. I
Really?
love you for that.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Okay.
I just
Right.
think the first
It's like
round.
work from
I
home's
mean,
not
listen,
going back to work from work.
this is this is just my opinion, but
Okay.
it might be more effective. You could see a lot more people if you send out tapes. There's only a certain amount of people that you can get into a room in the day, right? I
Yeah,
mean, literally, you have 15-minute increments, maybe if you're lucky.
never thought
Some of
about
these
that.
scenes are long. They're 15 pages. They're 8 pages with a monologue. And then you do it, and then you give them a redirect. You're in there for a half hour.
I didn't think about
So
that.
you're not bringing in everyone.
Okay. Good point.
Now, mind you, every casting director is different. I can't speak for everyone. It doesn't seem like it's going away. And I know certain actors love to be in the room because they can win a room by their personality. They also make a choice, and then they can immediately find out, oh, no, that choice is not right. Oh, cool. Let me give it the way that you see it. And they have an opportunity to redirect right there. When you put it on tape, that's it.
But
That's
you
all
get a
they see.
choice. I know that there's a couple actors that said I like to do the self tapes because I can control what I send out.
Oh, okay. On the positive side, 100%.
100%.
You can take your time. You can turn in take 50,
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
and get that
If your
perfect
husband has the patience
performance.
for it,
That is
or,
true.
or
That's
my
why I was
husband, I meant,
shocked that
if
you're
my
still
husband
married
has the
after
patience for
all
it,
that.
yeah. But yeah, there's a monetary investment in getting a good self tape audition too, and I haven't made that investment yet. I've got a cell phone,
Okay.
and that's it. I don't have
Done.
my backlight or my front light or a gray backdrop yet, and
Well,
um,
listen, that is honestly not a huge major investment. Lights are very cheap
yes,
on Amazon. I
okay,
mean, legit. A background or to paint a wall. I'm a big fan of painting a wall instead of having a backdrop, a
fabric or something.
curtain, or a
Okay,
fabric, because I like to use walls. I like to lean on them. I
yeah,
like to
that's
make that a
true.
part of the scene.
Okay,
So it's really a very minimal investment. A majority of people have a pretty darn good camera with really good lenses.
yep,
Um, Maybe you got to think about sounds. Sometimes cell phones, the person reading across from you sounds great, and you sound like you're at the bottom of a well. So you might have to get maybe a little wireless mic, or even an attached mic, so the
sure,
sound is good.
that's a
But it's
good
a
point.
very minimal investment,
Okay,
really.
okay,
The investment that actors make with me is, I mean, I have all the equipment. I have a nice camera and decent lights, and it looks pretty good and it sounds good. The investment is having someone to rehearse with, someone who's done it for a while, to help find aspects of the script that you didn't think of, or to make things better. But you could do that with a good actor friend, someone who
absolutely.
understands the scene. You don't need a coach. I do believe you need someone across from you that's got some sort of eye, some sort of idea what it's about. That definitely helps.
I, I will agree because I figured that out last year, but I was actually doing an audio tape of me reading the lines, pushing the cell phone and having the lines, as opposed to having a real person read the lines, because you lose that opportunity of that moment to moment spontaneity by
Right.
not by having someone read the lines back to you, not your own lines, but the scene partner lines. So, but it's been challenging, Tom. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I think everyone's getting it now and realizes it's more than likely here to stay. I still need to perfect it if I want to really work, because I'm feeling like I'm even sending in some auditions that just at first glance are like, nope,
Oh yeah, and the art of the self tape, I find it very exciting because you can be very creative. Last night we're in class, and we've had this amazing actor, Dan Hildebrand,
Okay.
sit in on class and give notes, and Dan has done things. He was in Game of Thrones. Um, he was in Deadwood. He
No,
played
I know
two
who he
different
is.
characters
Mm-hmm.
in Deadwood. If you look him up, you go,
Yeah.
"Oh, okay,
Yeah.
I've seen this. This guy has done so much." And we were doing a scene last night that took place in a car. Now, how many car scenes have we done in auditions? How do we do it? Where are we looking? The person's next to you. You know what he said?
What?
He said, "I film my auditions in my car." I was like,
Oh God,
"What?"
brilliant!
I go, "That's amazing. Like, why aren't I doing that?"
Why?
I Wait a
Ah,
second.
that's uh, that makes
Now,
sense. Yeah.
I will say this. I will say this. Some casting directors might hate it. Okay. One time I had I had to do a car scene and I had the actress go completely profile.
Right.
I don't know. We were being creative, completely profile.
Got it.
And she kind of kicked her head to the right because she was driving to her little brother. Oh, she booked the part. Okay.
Interesting.
And so then my next audition in a car scene, I was like, I'm going to shoot the actor in profile and do that. Well, guess what? They came back and they go, could you retape it? Because I'm only seeing half the person's face.
See,
This
you
is
never
driving
know.
us crazy. So you just never
You
know.
never know, and only if they ask for two different ways to do it is when you can show some of the opposition there. Uh,
Which is so fun to do too.
that I love that Dan said that. That is, it's remarkable, isn't it? Sometimes we can't see the forest through the trees.
Totally, totally.
So, goodness, I'll be back in Burbank one day, and I am definitely going to sign up for some classes. There's no doubt about that. I'm kind of curious is what is your favorite thing about being an acting coach?
Well, you know what my favorite thing is? Um, Here's my favorite. I get a call um, from an actor who I coached fairly recently for some big thing. And the call is like midday for
Mm-hmm.
the end of the day. And I'm like, huh, what's going on here? Why are they calling?
Mm-hmm.
And I answer the phone and I feel this excitement. And they're like, hey. I'm like, hey. Usually if it's audition, like, hey, Tom, are you free tomorrow? They just go, hi, how you doing? I'm like, good.
Right?
And they go, I got the part.
Bravo.
I got it. I just got off the phone with my agent, and they're screaming and going crazy. That is the best part, Don. Just to see the absolute joy when someone has put in all that hard work and they book the part.
And they cannot wait to call their coach, you, Tom Draper.
And I really, truly honored. Some people are like,
Sure.
you're the first person I called. I'm
Absolutely.
calling my mom next. I'm like, oh,
Right, there you go.
my heart. I'm just like, oh, that is the best.
Oh,
Now go
Tom.
call mom, you know?
Yeah,
Um,
please hang up and call your mother.
exactly. That's the best. And then you see that turn into sometimes it's a part that changes their career and their life. And then
Absolutely.
they're off to the races.
And there you
So,
go. Just like Shay. So I am so happy that I got to spend time with you, Mr. Draper. I learned a ton today. The TomDraperActing.com. Is there any other contact information you'd like to leave as we close up our show? And any final
uh,
thoughts?
um, well, first of all, Don, thank you for having me
You're
on the
welcome.
captain's table.
You're
It was
welcome.
amazing. That lobster was amazing. I had a great meal at the captain's table.
Oh,
It
thank you.
was
Next time I'll take you to the smokehouse in Burbank.
the famous
Yes,
smokehouse.
the famous smokehouse. Oh,
People can go to the website and they can see. I think I have my phone number on there
yes,
and an
yes.
email
Mm-hmm. Yes,
to reach
you
out and
do.
say, hey, yeah, simple as that.
Well, Tom, thank you so much. Remember, it's TomDraperActing.com. One of these days, I'd like to have you back on the show. And next time I'm in the Valley, I'll give you a heads up and I'd love to take you to lunch. But we just thank you so much. Everybody reach out. Get your acting chops together and get some training from Mr. Tom Draper. We appreciate you so much.
My pleasure, Don. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you, and thank you everyone for joining us today at the Captain's Table. Until next time, bye-bye.